Good day everyone. Today we are going to report about the Article 11 and Article 12 of the Constitution of the Philippines. Article 11, Accountability of Public Officers. Public office is the right, authority, and duty created and conferred by law by which a given period, either fixed by law or enduring at the pleasure of the appointing power. Public accountability. The underlying principle of the Article 11 is that public office is a public trust. Meaning, public office position should be of rendering service to the public. Public trust is a nature of public office. Another nature of public office is that public office is not a property, meaning the holder of the office should not claim that he has the full right and he owns his position. Another nature of public office is that public office is not a contract. Anyone being removed from the office should not blame the government for any damages he sue after being removed. Public accountability duty always carry with it financial accountability, performance accountability, and institutional or structural accountability. Next, we have impeachment. Impeachment refers to a political process whereby the activities of public officials are brought under scrutiny. So, impeachment is a method of national inquest into conduct of public men. Consequences if the impeachment is successful is removal from office and ban on holding future office. Impeachable officials or the officials to be removed by the impeachment. We have the President, Vice President, Supreme Court members, Ombudsman, and the members of the constitutional commissions. We also have the grounds for impeachment. First, we have culpable violation of the Constitution or willing to violate the Constitution. Next, we have the treason or giving alliances other than the Republic of the Philippines. Next, we have bribery or accepting gifts which has a certain exchange. Next, we have grafts and corruption and betrayal of the public trust or the loss of the trust of the public. Next, we have the impeachment process. First step is complaint is filed in the House of the Representatives. Second step is complaint is referred to the appropriate committee. Third step is 1 out of 3 of all House members must vote to affirm or override the complaint. The fourth step is verified complaint become the article of impeachment. It is transmitted to Senate for trial. Next step is in cases where the President is being impeached, the Chief Justice shall preside but cannot vote. So last step is the conviction. 2 out of 3 vote of all the Senate members decide the fate of the one being impeached. Next is the special anti-corruption bodies. First, we have the Ombudsman or the Public Prosecutor. Next, we have the Sandigan Bayan or the Anti-Graft Court. Next, we have the Commission on Audit or the Financial Accountability. And last, we have the Civil Service Commission or the Enforcing Ethical Standards and Behavior. So, the Ombudsman, Office of the Special Prosecutor. Ombudsman, also known as the Tanud Bayan, serves as the watchdog of the government offices and agencies. So, the power of the Ombudsman is to investigate and prosecute. When we say investigate, they made an investigation on a certain complaint against a government officials. The Ombudsman also can prosecute, meaning they suggest a solution to the complaint. Next, we have the composition of the Ombudsman. First, one overall Deputy Ombudsman. Second, one deputy ombudsman for the three islands in the Philippines, which are the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And third, the one deputy ombudsman on the AFP and law enforcing agencies. So, an ombudsman must be a natural-born citizen of the Philippines at least 40 years on the time of their appointment. An ombudsman also have at least 10 years legal practitioner or judge. An ombudsman also have 7 years term, no reappointment. An ombudsman may not run for public office immediately following the end of the term. Other provisions of the Article 11 is number 1, the state has the right to recover unlawfully acquired property from public officials. 2, public officials may not benefit from financial accommodations during their tenure. And lastly, disclosure of assets and liabilities.
Article 12. National Economy and Patrimony. Section 1. The goals of the national economy are a more equitable distribution of opportunities, income, and wealth, a sustained increase in the amount of goods and services produced by the nation for the benefit of the people, and an expanding productivity as the key to raising the quality of life for all, especially the underprivileged. The state shall promote industrialization and full employment based on sound agricultural development and agrarian reform through industries that make full and efficient use of human and natural resources and which are competitive in both domestic and foreign markets. However, the state shall protect Filipino enterprises against unfair foreign competition and trade practices. In the pursuit of these goals, all sectors of the economy and all regions of the country shall be given optimum opportunity to develop. Private enterprises, including corporations, cooperatives, and similar collective organizations, shall be encouraged to broaden the base of their ownership. This section talks about the opportunities, income, and wealth for all people, especially to those people who are underprivileged in wealth. The objectives of the state is to promote full employment, protect the Filipino enterprises, and give opportunities to those underprivileged to make a living. Section 2. All lands of the public domain, waters, minerals, coal, petroleum, and other mineral oils, all sources of potential energy, fisheries, forest or timber, wildlife, flora and fauna, and other natural resources are owned by the state. All lands of public domain and other natural resources are owned by the state. When we say state, it is a nation or territory considered as an organized political community under one government. Their general rule is all natural resources cannot be alienated except agricultural lands. In this section, the states protect the nation's marine wealth in its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and reserve its use to Filipino citizens only. When we say archipelagic or archipelago, it is a group of islands including parts of islands, interconnecting waters, and other natural features which are also closely interrelated that such island. The state shall reserve its use exclusively to Filipino citizens. Section 3. When we say public domain, it is the space where no intellectual property right exists. This means that works in the public domain may be used without any restrictions or whatsoever. Section 4. The Congress shall as soon as possible determine by law the specific limits of forest lands and national parks, marking clearly their boundaries on the ground. Thereafter, such forest lands and national parks shall be conserved and may not be increased nor diminished except by law. The Congress shall provide for such period as it may determine measures to prohibit logging in endangered forest and watershed areas. When we say Congress, it is the legislature of federal government or the action of coming together. In this section, the Congress determine by law the specific limits of forest lands and national parks. Section 5. State here serves as the shoulder of the people, whoever sell their lands. In determining ownership and extent of ancestral Congress, may use customary laws on property, rights, and relations. Section 6. In this section, individuals and private groups has the right to own and establish their property, whether they build houses, make a big farm, to help other people who had no work. Section 7. This section talks about the private lands which cannot be transferred or conveyed except to individuals, corporations, or associations that are qualified to acquire or hold lands of public domain and have the power to protect its property. Section 8. Notwithstanding the provisions of Section 7 of this article, a natural-born citizen of the Philippines who has lost his Philippine citizenship may be a transferee of private lands subject to limitations provided by law. Hence, land can be used only for residential purposes. Foreign state may acquire land, but only for embassy and staff residence purposes. Filipino citizenship is only acquired at the time the land is acquired. Thus, loss of citizenship after acquiring the land does not deprive ownership. Section 9. The Congress may establish an independent economic and planning agency headed by the President, which shall, after consultations with the appropriate public agencies, various private sectors, and local government units, recommended to Congress and implement continuing integrated and coordinated programs and policies for national development. Until the Congress provides otherwise, the National Economic and Development Authority shall function as the independent planning agency of the government. Section 10. The Congress shall, upon recommendation of the Economic and Planning Agency, when the national interest dictates, reserve to citizens of the Philippines or to corporations or associations at least 60% of whose capital is owned by such citizens, or such higher percentage as Congress may prescribe certain area of investments, the Congress shall enact measures that will encourage the formation and operation of enterprises whose capital is wholly owned by Filipino in the grant of rights, privileges, and concessions covering the national economy and patrimony. The state shall give reference to qualified Filipinos. The state shall regulate and exercise authority over foreign investments within its national jurisdiction and in accordance with its national goal and priorities. In the grant of rights, privileges, and concessions covering the national economy and patrimony, the state shall give reference to qualified Filipinos. Section 11. This section, which is franchises for public utilities, the Congress may directly grant a legislative franchise or power to grant franchises may be delegated to appropriate regulatory agencies and or LGUs. The state shall promote the preferential use of Filipino labor, domestic materials, and locally produced goods and adopt measures that help make them competitive. Section 13. The state shall pursue a trade policy that serves the general welfare and utilizes all forms and arrangements of exchange on the basis of equality and reciprocity. The sustained development of a reservoir of national talents consisting of Filipino scientists, entrepreneurs, professionals, managers, high-level technical manpower and skilled workers, and craftsmen in all fields shall be promoted by the state. The state shall encourage appropriate technology and regulate its transfer for the national benefit. The practice of all professions in the Philippines shall be limited to Filipino citizens, save in cases prescribed by law. Section 15. The Congress shall create an agency to promote the viability and growth of cooperatives as instruments for social justice and economic development. Section 16. The Congress shall not except by general law provide for the information, organization, or regulation of private corporations. Government-owned or controlled corporations may be created or established by special charters in the interest of the common good and subject to the test of economic viability. In this section, the Congress can only provide for the information, etc. of private corporations through a general law. Section 17. In times of national emergency, when the public interest so requires, the state may, during the emergency and under reasonable terms prescribed by it, temporarily take over or direct the operation of any privately owned public utility or business affected with public interest. Section 18. The state may, in the interest of national welfare or defense, establish and operate vital industries and, upon payment of just compensation, transfer to public ownership utilities and other private enterprises to be operated by the government. Section 19. The state shall regulate or prohibit monopolies when the public interest so requires. No combinations in restraint of trade or unfair competition shall be allowed. Section 20. The Congress shall establish an independent central monetary authority. The members of whose governing board must be a natural-born Filipino citizens of known probity, integrity, and patriotism, the majority of whom shall come from the private sector. They shall also be subject to such other qualifications and disabilities as may be prescribed by law. The authority shall provide policy direction in the areas of money, banking, and credit. It shall have supervision over the operations of banks and exercise such regulatory powers as may be provided by law over the operations of finance companies and other institutions performing similar functions. Until the Congress of otherwise provides, the Central Bank of the Philippines, operating under existing laws, shall function as the central monetary authority. Section 21. Foreign loans may only be incurred in accordance with law and the regulation of the monetary authority. Information on foreign loans obtained or guaranteed by the government shall be made available to the public. Section 22. Acts which circumvent or negate any of the provisions of this article shall be considered inimical to the national interest and subject to criminal and civil sanctions such as may be provided by law.